So I'm seeing more and more people recently saying webinars don't work anymore, they're oversaturated, too many people are using them, and they're just not the most effective sales funnel to use. I call BS because we're using it every single day in our business, even right here in 2021, and we're making more money now than we ever did using webinars. You just gotta adapt to what's working now, which I'll give you some tips on right now. Firstly, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Penberthy. I'm the founder of AdClients.com, where we help you launch and scale your course or coaching business. I'm pleased you're here. In today's video, we're going to talk about webinars. Webinar. We're in the wrong profession. Okay, I've been preaching this topic on the channel here for a very long time. If you just go back through a bunch of videos on the channel, you'll see I've been sharing how we've been earning literally millions on the internet using webinars to sell our courses, to sell our coaching programs, to sell our services, even our events, physical in-person events. And every year, it's hilarious, every year people are saying webinars don't work anymore. They said it in 2018, they said it in 2019, they said it in 2020, and now they're saying it right here in 2021. Webinars don't work, they're oversaturated, too many people are using them, they don't convert anymore, and blah-de-blah-de-blah, right? The list goes on, and it's simply not true. And there's two reasons that these people will be telling you that. Number one, they have zero idea what they're doing. Right? Like they genuinely think webinars don't work anymore, and it's just because they're not keeping up with the times. They're not evolving with how webinars are evolving, which I'll share with you some of that stuff in just a moment as to how to make webinars work right now in 2021. They're just not evolving. And so they're using strategies that perhaps worked in 2015 that now clearly don't work now, and now they're just putting a blanket over the whole thing. Webinars don't work, okay? That's first category. Second category is that they know that webinars do still work, but they want to sell you on their whiz-bang strategy, right? They found some other funnel that they're using or some other strategy, and although they know webinars work as well, it's like, hey, let's poo-poo webinars so that we can glorify this new thing and get some clients and customers to come join us in that thing. Either way, behind the scenes, people like me and my team and my clients were still absolutely cleaning up. Last year, in 2020, you probably saw on some of our other videos on the channel, we had one of our best years ever for revenue and for profit. And guess what? Big surprise, the lion's share of that came from our webinar presentations. So let's talk about some of the things that changed with webinars over the course of the last few years and what you really need to be kept up to date with. So the first is this question about live webinars versus automated webinars, okay? You can either set a webinar up to be at a certain day, at a certain time. People have to show up and you've got your live audience, but there's no flexibility on the time. So you set the time, you set the day. If people can make it, great. If they can't, well then, too bad, right? So that's live. Automated is where you obviously pre-record the webinar presentation and you set it up in a way that your attendees or potential attendees can register for whatever date and time suits them. Now there's an argument that automated webinars don't convert as high as live, meaning if you have a live audience that you're genuinely interacting with, you know their names, you're chatting with them, you're going to get a higher conversion rate to whatever the next thing is. If you're selling your course, selling your coaching, offering a phone call, you're going to get a higher conversion, and that is actually true. But it's not that big of a jump over automated. You get a slight dip in conversions on an automated, but here's where things get exciting, is you have a huge bump in attendance rate. What we're finding right now on live webinars, if we're doing them to cold traffic, meaning Facebook ad or YouTube ad, never heard of us before, register for a live webinar, registration rate's gonna be down anyway because we're forcing them to register for a certain day and time, which isn't gonna work for them. And then of the people that register, we're seeing about a 15% show up rate, attendance rate. 100 leads and only 15 of them show up. It's really depressing. And that's in our industry of marketing and business and all that kind of stuff. We've actually got clients of ours that still do live webinars, and because they're in an industry that's more unique, it's not overly used yet in their industry. They're still seeing some good numbers, but certainly in spaces like ours, it's quite low, it's 15%. Whereas automated, we're seeing anything from 40% to 60%. So you can see it's a huge jump. And although we see a little drop in conversions, this absolutely trumps it, so that live versus automated, we're making way more revenue at the other end with automated webinars. Now, let me share something else with you. Let's choose a different colored pen to be interesting. So when it comes to automated webinars, we traditionally offered loads of time options. You know, we had a 9 a.m., an 11 a.m., a 3 p.m., a 7 p.m., a 9 p.m. And then we would let someone choose between, the next few days. And again, that used to be exciting. Now it's too many options. And so we've boiled down the times that seem to work best for us. And here's what we do. If we're driving someone to a webinar registration page, and we're driving them from an ad, on that registration page, when they go to opt in, the button's going to pop up, and we're pretty much going to give them just 3 options. And those are GIT, which stands for just in time, meaning whenever they land on the page, the next presentation is starting in literally just a few minutes. That actually works quite well. For people that have seen your ad and it just so happens that they've got time on, in their day to literally watch your presentation right now, then you give them that option. Outside of that, we have the 3 time options I was just telling you about. So actually it's 4, you've got 4 options. So it's just in time, and then we let them register for 11 a.m., and then it's 3 p.m., and I haven't got any space, it's 7 p.m. We used to have a 9 p.m., that for us didn't work too well. We used to have extension onto the next day and giving them the chance to register days in the future. We don't do that anymore. It's just in time, 11 a.m., 3 p.m., 7 p.m. That works really, really well. It gives us a high opt-in rate, gives them just enough options so that they can find a time that works good for them, but it's not so many options that they feel overwhelmed that they don't make a decision at all. Now here's the caveat, this still needs to be set up as an official webinar. So even if you're doing just in time, it still needs to be set through a webinar platform like EverWebinar or Stealth Seminar. It still needs to be set up officially as a webinar. And some people are making a big mistake with just-in-time webinars. These have taken off in the last kind of year or two, and this is where some people are getting stuck and just labeling webinars as, hey, webinars don't work anymore, but just because they're doing it wrong. And let me explain a big mistake that some of these people are making. They say, all right, just in time, that sounds good. Someone can opt in and the webinar's starting in just a few minutes. So if that's the case, why don't I bypass the need for them to actually register for a proper webinar platform and get sent the official link for them to jump into the webinar room, and then all this kind of stuff's going on with the chat box and all this kind of stuff. Why don't I just do this? Why don't I have someone just opt in on my capture page, and as soon as they opt in, why don't I just send them to a page where the webinar is ready to be played right there? And of course, the next step, there'll be a button to do the next action, which is to sign up for your thing, whatever it is. So people have been trying to cut corners. They say, well, why keep people waiting? Let's just have them opt in and straight away land on a page. There's none of this going to your email, check you've got your link and jump into the waiting room. And then when the time hits, then the waiting room turns into the webinar. Let's not do all of that stuff. Let's just give them the video right there on a page. You know what? This doesn't work very well at all. We've tested it so many different times. We've tested it where we've allowed the button to be there from the beginning for the next action and it not being there and only appearing at the very end. We've tested loads of different ways to do this video. Give them the controls the entire time. Take the controls away. Allow them to pause. Don't allow them to pause. Make this page look like a live webinar room or make it obvious that it's not. We've tried everything. Bottom line, if people have just opted in and got straight onto a page like this, there's no real urgency to stick around. There's no webinar feeling of like there's a chat roll going and they have to watch it right now. They can't skip, they can't rewind, they can't fast forward. And so what ends up happening is people don't pay attention on this page. They have the tab open, in their browser. They pause the video and think, oh, I'll come back to it later. Or they just get distracted and leave and never come back. Ultimately, money in or money spending on ads versus money out, it's no good. So even if you want to do this kind of just-in-time thing, you still got to set it up as a proper webinar, like actually have that webinar functionality. And the final thing that I want to leave you with is you have to understand that there's 2 things at play here when you've got your webinars, right? You've got the webinar itself, which we've talked a little bit about, and then you've got the traffic that you're sending to that webinar. And again, some people can categorize webinars not working anymore just because paid advertising is getting more expensive, right? So maybe before you would spend $100 and make a $1,000 sale on a webinar, you're 10xing on your ad spend and everything feels great. Yeah, that was back in 2014, 2015. Now we're here in 2021, that's just not the case. You can't get those numbers anymore. At least it's very, very challenging to be able to get those numbers anymore. And so now it's costing you $600 or $700 to make a $1,000 sale. And that's again where people are saying webinars aren't working. You have to understand, it doesn't matter what sales funnel you use, whether you're going to use a webinar, whether you're going to use a VSL, a bridge video, a challenge funnel. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Advertising costs have still gone up. That doesn't change. The goalpost has moved from a few years ago to where it is right now. So it's more about, and this is the key, is when you're using webinars now, which I still find, although we've got a rising ad cost, I still find webinars are the absolute best way to recoup our investment on paid ads. But ultimately, you want to have multiple things that you're doing. So gone are the days where you can kind of just have one webinar and that's it. One webinar selling one product and running some traffic and thinking you can scale that to 6 figures a month. It's going to be very, very difficult to do that. But what you can do now is you can have multiple webinars. So you can use your first one as an entry point. You can use your first one as a liquidator of your ad spend. So put it this way. Let's say you're selling a $1,000 course. Maybe you have another high ticket offer you could offer on the back end. Maybe you have another $1,000 course. Maybe there's something like that. There's an arrangement like that where you've got multiple things that you can sell and you can have a webinar for each one. So now what you do is when you're running your paid ads, you're driving all that traffic to your first webinar with the goal of just at least breaking even, at least liquidating your ad spend. So let's say you spend $1,000, you'd be happy if you make $1,000 back. Why? Because you built your list, you built your audience, and now you can promote to those people the second webinar and you make all of your money there. That's what we do. Our email list is one of our biggest assets that our company has. It's like an internal way of driving traffic whenever we want on command. And it's absolutely free. Because if we can liquidate the ad spend, build our list, by utilizing the first webinar, well, now we can just send an email whenever we want to the next thing, and that's where we make our money. And right now in our company, we make about 6 figures a month from just mailing our list. And that's additional revenue, isn't costing us anything. It's a pretty sweet setup. So this is why, and some of the reasons, there's many, many more, but we haven't got time to go into them, why webinars still work right now. They work better than ever, but you've got to adapt to some of this stuff. So anyway, check it out. If this was interesting to you or helpful for you, if you'd like to learn more about this whole webinar model, we can teach it to you. We'll teach you the same stuff we teach our clients, what's working right now, how to put the presentation together, how to build the funnel, and how to literally turn these webinars into cash producing assets for your business. It's a ton of fun. If you're serious about getting some results with this and you're getting frustrated with all this other stuff you're trying to do and you just want a clear path, clear plan of action, then inquire about becoming a private client. We've got a link in the description box and the top comment. That'll take you to a page you can hear about our coaching, what we've got, what it takes to become a private client of ours, and maybe it's just what you need right now to finally get some revenue coming into your business. So go ahead and check out that link if you're interested, and other than that, appreciate you watching this video. Don't forget to like and comment this video. It encourages us to make more content just like this. We want to see that you're enjoying it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We put out a couple new videos like this every single week that I think you will enjoy. So with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.